Hello everybody. I thought today I'd take a video of myself doing some drawing. I'm working on a sample page here featuring Black Bolt and also Silver Surfer. You'll see him in the panel. But the main thing I'm going to do today is actually talk about using reference when you draw and what to look for when you're using reference. One of the things I like to do when I use reference when I'm drawing is draw the overall shape of whatever it is I'm referencing. So in this sample piece that I'm working on, and for this particular panel, for this particular part of this figure for Black Bolt, I'm actually working on the head. And what's cool about this particular shot is the angle. We're kind of seeing Black Bolt from kind of like a worm's eye view, looking up at him. And this is where the reference comes really into play, because this stuff here is normally a little bit more trickier to pull off if you just try to draw it, from your head, or try to fake it, so to speak. So what I like to do is take the reference photo using, in this case, my iPhone. And iPhones are really handy because there's really no excuse whenever you need a reference shot to be able to take a quick photo and use it as reference when you're drawing something. So whatever you use, whether it's a traditional camera or a digital camera, or I've even used an iPad for something larger, a larger shot maybe. But for like hands, heads like this, headshots from these types of angles, they're perfect for taking photo for a reference. Getting back to the drawing I'm working on here, as I mentioned earlier, what I want to do is try and draw the overall shape of the subject. So what I'm doing is actually creating the correct proportions, the correct spacing from a overall kind of outline type of view before I start going into details. And you can see here I'm starting to go into a little bit of detail, placing the ear where it needs to go, but a lot of that doesn't really come into play until I've actually drawn the overall shape. In the past I've kind of called this my like envelope method, because what I do is I draw the overall shape, and that acts like an envelope wherein I have to put in everything else that falls within that envelope. In this case here you can see me starting to draw the eyes, or I should say an eye, and then starting to place the brow, the eyebrow. Now all of that doesn't really go in until I have that overall shape, the outside shape. If I can get that shape to look correct with respect to the reference I've taken, the photo reference, then I know that I can place everything in, such as the eye, the ear, the eyebrow, and right here I'm starting to draw a little bit of the nose, some of the part of the nostril. I know all that will fit in correctly and has a better chance of lining up and looking, normal, and something that will look realistic, because the outline, the overall outline, is correct. Once you've got that outline, if you can place, again, the eyes, the nose, the ears, again, and here I'm about to draw a little bit of the mouth in, if you can place those in the correct proportion and relation to each of those individual parts, then the whole piece will start to come together. A lot of times, we'll be drawing, and then you will start to, you'll kind of draw in an oval, drawing some guidelines and whatnot, and then you start, right away going into an eyeball, starting to render the heck out of it. But that's not really the way I would approach it. Again, I would approach it by getting the outline of the shape or object that you're drawing, then putting in the pieces of whatever goes within that shape. Like if you were drawing a hand, you would then draw the outline of the fist, or the hand, maybe part of the wrist, and then start drawing in and trying to fit in the pieces that go in there, meaning, or in this case, in that case, it would be fingers. That way, when you are placing your objects, such as the fingers, or in this case details like the eyes and this head and the nose and whatnot, then you have the perfect container or envelope, if you will, for these objects to kind of interact with. And getting back into the specific details in this head shot that I'm drawing, I'm now drawing in the mask. Again, this is the character Black Bolt. But in drawing those details, you don't really need to render the heck out of an ear or an eyeball or an eyebrow or a nose or lips to make it look real. What will make it look convincing, again, is the proportions, the distances, the spatial relationships between, where you place the eye, where you place the nose, where you place the ear. All of that is going to create more of a realistic look than if you tried to render every single strand of hair on a head and try to give every strand its own specific highlight, or if you're trying to render every single eyelash, or trying to render the eyeball with the iris and then a highlight inside there. For comic books here, for my particular style, to me that's overkill. It's too time consuming. And again, it's not as convincing if you had everything in the proper perspective, relationship to placement within the head, the space that you've drawn, and where you lay these items out. Again, where you place the eyes, where you place the ear, where you place the nose, where you place the mouth, perspective, the correct angle. That's why taking reference and using it is very important. All of that is what will make it look realistic. I've seen a lot of drawings that have tons of detail, have killer rendering, but the proportions are off, or the spatial relationships between, the eyes, ears, the nose, the mouth is just not correct. And it ends up looking nice, but it's not very convincing. And that's kind of why, we're telling stories, because we know they're not real. It's on a two-dimensional format. It's not three-dimensional, but at the same time, I'm trying to convince the reader that this is actually an object in space, or whatever it is, a person that has emotions and has feelings and is trying to convey whatever is happening at the moment in any particular panel or story, for as far as comic books are concerned, and trying to come up with good, clean design and composition and all that. So again, using reference, very key to making parts of the drawing or the whole drawing look convincing. With this particular figure here, with Black Bolt, what I've actually done is I have taken, again, I'm using my head as a reference shot because that's a tricky angle to pull off, but the body I kind of sketched in, I roughed it in. The hands, I did also use a photo for. In fact, Black Bolt's right hand in this panel here. I haven't quite got to the left hand yet, but the right hand, I took a photo of that with the same iPhone that's actually on the side here, and was able to actually get that to also be part of my reference. So there you go. Always use photo reference when you need it. Try not to fake it, because if you try to fake it, sometimes it just doesn't come off.